And we're live.
Wonderful. So we want to say welcome to everybody that's watching this, and of course everybody that's here. I'm Dr. Tricia Seymour, and you are?
Dr. Rusty Barrier.
And this is a series that we're going to start as of tonight on advanced metaphysics and self-mastery. So it's a little bit different than what you're going to hear from other classes, and I'll explain to you why it's a little bit different in just a minute.
No, go ahead.
Oh, you want me to do it now?
Go ahead.
So most of the time, when you go to learn metaphysics, and if you're new to metaphysics, it's great to go to some real good introduction classes where you'll learn what are chakras and what do they mean by past lives and what is karma, and some real just what we would consider basic information that is important to understand as you go on your spiritual path. As people start waking up, though, I think what happens is there's nobody really going to the next step. And so you learn all that, and it works for a while, and then it doesn't work anymore. And you go, well, I don't understand. I was doing my affirmations and holding my mouth right. It was all working, and I
doing the right mudra.
Right, and I was asking my angels for that front row parking space, and all that happened, and manifesting, and then all of a sudden it went off the cliff. And it stopped, and I don't understand why.
And by the way, if that hasn't happened to you yet, I'm sorry, it will.
So we thought we'd start this series off by just discussing and talking about the levels of consciousness and how you awaken. And just to kind of give you an overview. And so for us, this is kind of the foundation of what we'll be referring back to as we go through the whole series and we talk about all the different topics. Anything?
In a minute.
Okay. So if you don't know, we're husband and wife, so we kind of just look at each other periodically. But so what we're doing is we're going to be talking tonight about just how we move through them. So when you're very, you want me to go ahead and get started in the levels, or you have something
whatever
else?
you want to do.
So as we go through and you start waking up, so when you are in an evolutionary way, as humans, we started at a level where you just really wanted to make sure you were alive. Something called survival, right?
And if you want to put that in a physical model, we all begin life as an infant. And in that moment of infancy, we are totally dependent on the people around us for our care. But we also don't really have a sense of self at that point. We've sort of blended in with everything around us. This is the same as the levels of consciousness. At the very beginning, we are this very small being in this very big world that's frightening to us. And so we're learning. We're constantly, but our focus is here. It's very tight in on us. Then we begin to grow. We begin to recognize mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, brother, sister. We begin to see a little larger group, and we begin to be part of that safety net.
And in a spiritual way, often what that means is that we adopt or take on whatever the religion of our family is. So if your family was Hindu, Buddhist, Jewish, Muslim, whatever, Sikh, whatever the religion your family was, we tend to embrace what we were taught. And so we go, great, that's it. That's the way it's supposed to be. And it's also at this level somewhat black and white. When you're at the very beginnings of your spiritual and your life path, it's usually very black and white, where you're like, I'm right and they're wrong. So
that continues for a long time, by the way.
So on the religious side, if you are Christian, you think Christianity is right and everybody else is wrong. If you are, devout Jew or a devout Muslim, you think you're right, everybody else is wrong. And so when you're looking at life from that point of view, it's somewhat narrow. And so we have somewhat of a narrow view of how the world works, only through our religion, what we've been taught through our own religion, through our own eyes, and so it's kind of closed.
It's very closed, actually. Mm-hmm. And it feels small. And if you look around you in society, you can identify folks that their whole world is about themselves. Okay, that's where they're coming from, right? So you know that's a very low level of consciousness. It is self and self alone is the words that Tricia and I use for that. As you mature, you move into that next level and you begin to see, you include more in your consciousness, okay? More has value to you, is I guess a better way to put that.
It still may be more that's like you.
More like you.
So we aren't going out beyond people that aren't like me. I'm still looking at people that might be in my country now, or that might
look like me, sound like me,
dress like me, that kind of thing. So now we have a little bit bigger picture of the world and how it functions, and maybe a little more accepting of differences, but not a lot. We're still very closed as far as what is accepted and what we embrace and think is right.
But the word accept is an extremely important word as you go through consciousness development. The broader your consciousness, and I'm not going to say higher or lower because there's not really that kind of hierarchy in this. It's more, to me, it's more of a broadening. And the broader your consciousness gets, the more accepting you become of others and other ways. So.
And along those lines too, at the very beginning when you are, in many cases, not all, monotheism does it probably more than others, and that means one God, not multiple. But what you're looking at is God is everything, and I am nothing. God is most powerful, great, and I'm dirt. I have to do this sacrifice. I have to do this ritual. I have to do this puja. I have to do this mala. I have to do this prayer. I have to always say my rosary. Whatever the ritual is that you have to do to appease God or the gods. Think about history, right? They gave sacrifices and did rituals every season to the gods. And so when you're at that place, God is almighty and great, and I'm dirt. I'm nothing. So I have to be careful. God doesn't smite me, I got to be careful that something doesn't happen. I say something wrong and get struck by lightning, or say something wrong and have to do 100,000 lifetimes again, right? So there's that belief that I've just got to tread lightly and make sure because I'm not certain if I'm doing it right. So it becomes sort of fearful and kind of not empowering, disempowering. It becomes disempowering to self.
And it's at this level that karma begins to be a major part of your consciousness, because you begin to believe cause and effect is really what karma is in many ways, but at the spiritual level, it's if I upset God, goddess, whoever, they're going to punish me. All right? Again, we're not here, but we're here as we're walking up that path. Right? Once we begin to understand that maybe, just maybe, there's more to this story than what we've been told, we begin to expand out again. And as we expand, we begin to be more inclusive. Now suddenly, instead of I want to be around people who are just like me, or dress like me, or believe like me, we now become more interested in other thoughts, other beliefs, and recognizing that, we're different, and that's a good thing. Right? Again, you're expanding your consciousness. You're reaching out to be more inclusive. I'm going to say this right here, right now, for all of you to hear. I will use the word God or goddess, but that really is not a good description of consciousness. All right? But pure consciousness is what most of us would refer to as God or goddess. Right? Pure consciousness is 100% inclusive. Consciousness excludes no one or no thing. Right? What we are really doing as we're moving through in developmental stages is we're moving back to that point of being unconditionally accepting of everything.
So as we go through both individually and in our societies, and we continue to grow and include more people and see things a little bit differently. at each level that you move through, your beliefs will be challenged.
Mm-hmm.
So if you hold hard and fast to a belief and you don't want to let go of it, it's okay, there's no good or bad, but just know that if you go through this process and you evolve yourself, everything you thought was true at one level, which was true at that level, is probably not true at the next level. And that continues.
And it's a very interesting thing. We can sit here and we can talk to you, and we are, and we will, and we'll continue to do that. But once we hit a point that's beyond where you are at the moment, you literally will not comprehend it.
It may not make sense.
It's
right
a
away.
seed at that point, and you will get there. But at any point in the consciousness growth, once you're here, you understand everything down here. You see them for what they are. You still, unfortunately, will pass judgment as you move up the levels, though, because in essence, what happens is you're saying, how I feel, how I experience is better than how I used to experience. And then we go into they're still there, so they're not as smart, they're not as involved, they're evolved, or whatever. And we tend to kind of poo-poo the folks below us. But that's not really a good thing to do. As an adult, you don't go, that little baby's not anything of any value, they're just stupid. No, they're a baby. They're a baby.
They're just not as evolved, and evolved meaning just grown up.
Right.
So you say beliefs are?
A belief is nothing but a crystallized thought in my world. So a belief is a thought, and everything around us is a thought. That's all it is. That's all that exists is thought. But a belief is at the moment we got a thought, we said, ooh, I like this one. This makes my life work. I'm going to apply this to everything in my life. And there it is. And all of a sudden you get information that makes you go,
oh, crap. Maybe that's not right.
okay, there is something that I missed here. But your own brain will fight you. Literally, it will fight you. Because now it says, but you've locked this in. You have said, this is the way it is. And now we're having to have that shattered. And that's a very painful experience. A lot of folks, as they go through this process, get very sad. I'm not going to say depressed, because depression is actually a clinical diagnosis, but you feel, I'm different. No one likes me anymore. I don't believe the same anymore.
Well, and if you made your life with this group of friends, and they all have the same beliefs as you did, and then you change your beliefs, you might end up finding that your friends are not there for you anymore. You may find that you have to change friends too, because they don't understand what you're saying anymore. So along those lines, I was brought up, as was Rusty, in Christianity. My master's degree is actually from a Southern Baptist seminary. And so I was on the path to be, it's called diaconal ministry, but it's a level of ordination in the church that I was a part of. And so I was hook, line, and sinker, bought my family's religion and what they taught me. And so when these kind of concepts that we teach here and other people in other paths, I was like, no, they're wrong, that can't be, no, right? And then one day I woke up and went, oh crap, I think reincarnation might be real. And my entire world changed. Literally. Totally like flipped on its head, because in Christianity, that's not real. All right? And then finally I'm like, yeah, I got it. Karma, reincarnation, that's all there is, I got it. Strong, radical, I can do this. Radical reincarnation, right? I can do this. And then all of a sudden I get new information and shift to another level and go, oh crap. That might not be the way it is either.
That might not be the whole picture.
Oh man, I just get this thought, I hang on to it, I'm ready, I've got an identity, I can go into these groups and talk about these topics, and then all of a sudden I get new information or I have a new spiritual experience that goes, oh man, that's not how it really is, now what? What's next? And that's sort of how the process works. And again, it's a little more difficult because if you're hanging with people who have a particular belief and then you don't believe that anymore,
It threatens them.
they can't hear you. And it is threatening to them, definitely.
Now, Trish just gave you another little secret in that. You did.
Good.
She used the word identity.
Right.
Okay? And that's what our ego, you will hear me quite frequently distinguish between ego and spirit. Our ego wants an identity. Right? I am Rusty. I am metaphysical. I am all those things that we identify ourselves as. Now, in Tricia's case, in mine, by the way, I was raised in an extraordinarily fundamentalist Christian church and never bought a word of it. Just didn't stick for any reason, shape, form, or fashion. But for her, when she woke up at that level, and as with levels of consciousness, awakening is in stages, folks. It doesn't just go, it can, but it doesn't always. When she came out of the closet of discovering that there was more to the world than Christianity, that identity no longer fit her. Well, all of the people that was their identity, she had to deal with the fact that they were now going to try and save her, okay, or reject her. Okay? That's a very painful thing. Part of the path of awakening, of enlightenment, whatever term you want to call it, is constantly shedding your identity. All right? In Hinduism, there's a practice called neti neti, right? And it's looking at it and going, not this, not that, not this, not that. And that's neti neti. And what that means is you're looking at the parts of you that are not you. I can say, I am not Rusty, right? Because Rusty is the name that came with this body. It's the name that applies to this ego user interface that you all think is me. But I'm something behind that. I'm something greater than that.
You're getting too far ahead.
Okay. Reel me in.
Yeah, well, it's all true. And ego, by the way, is really just, again, our identity and who we are. And ego actually is necessary. People are like, I gotta get rid of my ego. No, you have to find, ego is the key to the game. We refer to this as the video game of life. And you're just a avatar in the game. That's all you are. And the key to get in the game is your ego, is to have an avatar, is to have something that's separate. Along these lines, a lot of times, as you go and you grow and you start expanding, Rusty also said, which I thought was good and I want to reiterate, is people say, I'm awake, or I'm waking up, or I wish everybody would wake up. Or you'll hear people say, oh, everything's evolving and the planet's awakening, and yeah, it's not. So it's an evolution. It's an evolutionary process. Along those lines, though, we started with, I am nothing and God is great and almighty and I've got to do something to appease the God or goddess or gods, right? Another level of that, though, like we keep going, and I see it as a spiral, because we go back over different parts throughout the spiral. This is not a straight line. It's not a straight line, right? And sometimes we go up and sometimes we go back and sometimes they all influence different parts. So it's a spiral. One of the next levels or areas you go to is I am everything and God is nothing. So
notice this is a pendulum swing.
Right. Now, I'm everything can come in two ways. One way it can come in is atheist. There is no God, I'm it, I'm everything, right? But the way that it normally comes into play in the metaphysical community is different. It is, I create my reality completely. I am in charge of it all. You ever heard that? I create my reality. My thoughts are it. My thoughts create everything that happens in my life. My past, my contracts, my previous life, I create it all.
I chose my parents. I chose my life before I got here.
That is the opposite of I'm nothing, is I'm everything. Now, as you move along the path, you got to get there. A pendulum, if it swings way over here to I'm nothing, I'm dirt, and you never get way over here to I'm wonderful, I'm God, eventually it never finds the middle, right? If you go just from here to here, then the middle ends up over here. We want the middle here. So all these stages are good stages. They're stages that you ought to go through, that people go through regularly. And by the way, one of the things in this talk that we're going to give you are things, as we said at the beginning, that you probably have never heard anywhere else. You do not have to agree with what we say. We're going to hit a lot of nerves of people, of what they've been taught and believe, and a lot of people will disagree with us. All we're telling you is our truth.
And I grew up in Texas in farm and ranch country, so the minute you show me a sacred cow, my first thought really is barbecue. What can I say?
So again, it's not a bad thing to think that you create it all, and that you are in charge, and that all you have to do is have right thoughts and it all works. But I will tell you, if that's all it took, everybody in this room would be multimillionaires, right? If you had the right thought of, I can be a millionaire, I can do it, you know, I'm going to win the lottery, and your thoughts were pure, and you're not going to win the lottery, why wouldn't you be winning the lottery? You see, so what happens is, people think they are awake because they see a little bit bigger picture. Mm-hmm. And the bigger picture at this point is probably, oh my word, I believe in talking to dead people. Oh my word, I believe in spirits and spirit guides and angels, and I can see divas and so the world is bigger because you're embracing more spiritual things. You're embracing things that are different than what you were taught and grew up with. You're embracing a bigger picture. You're embracing something beyond what you can see with your eyes. All that is wonderful. What we're saying is that's not the end.
That's not the end.
That's like the very beginning. That's like the very start of waking up.
It's about midpoint.
I had somebody once, I was at one of the metaphysical churches, and we were at a talk, and they had the opportunity to ask questions of the speaker. And the question the lady said was, I'm awake. When are all those people going to be gone? And even the speaker was like, I don't even know how to answer that. Because they were looking forward to like all those people they don't like, all those people they think are not as good as them, that aren't awake as them, that when are they going to be gone? You know, the bosses of the world that you don't like, the people who are politicians, the people who are at other levels on the spiral. And she really was angry that the world hadn't
gotten rid of everybody that she didn't like.
Yeah, that they had. I'm thinking, and who would that be? And who should be gone? And are you picking that? Do you get to choose? So yeah, she really was at the place where she thought she was awake, and everybody else that didn't understand metaphysics, that didn't understand spirit guides, and didn't understand mediums and psychics, and didn't understand the beyond the visual and beyond the 3D. She believed that they needed to be gone, and that in her world that was supposed to have happened, and it didn't, and she was upset. So I want you to hear, even at all these levels that we're talking about, there's judgment.
There's still judgment.
So she believed that she was, so as we said, the pendulum, she was at the point where she believed she created it all, and she created her world, and she wanted to know how she could get rid of these people that she didn't like, didn't agree with her. So even though we move up the levels, we still have judgments about other people and where they are, right? Why do I have to do this? Or you know, the people driving on the freeway that don't drive the way you drive, you know, the people that don't believe the way you believe. Your own family. A lot of people, when they go through this path, their own family is still in the religion of the family of origin, and they don't understand why you don't believe like they believe, right? So this is the I am God.
I am God.
And we have to get there, so it's not a bad thing. It's part of the path.
There's something that happens that starts moving you back, by the way. Because when you make the statement, I create it all, the next thing that happens is you have a thought, next meaning shortly thereafter, that says, oh crap, if I create it all, I'm responsible for it all. We don't want that. Not at this level. All right, please. Okay, I may create it, but no, I'm not. No, I didn't make that mess. Right? So we start going, okay, there's got to be more. And it's those little tips of more. What is it I want? What's next? And it's just a constant. Now, I'm going to give you some very good news here. Every single one of you, every single being on this planet will at some point be fully awake and into oneness. It is a promise. It is a guarantee. As a matter of fact, there is no way that cannot be. And I'm going ahead of the curve.
I was going to say, yeah, you jumped a few levels.
It's because I'm not the 1, 2, 3 guy. But we've never actually left oneness, folks. Right here, right now, you are 100% fully awake, fully enlightened, and realize there's nobody in this room. There is no room. There is no thing. Okay? That's where you're headed, by the way.
So we go on that pendulum. We go from God is everything and I'm dirt to I'm everything and I create it all. Right? I created it all. And what we found is there was a movie called The Secret, which was good and it helped people get to the I create it all. There's lots of other books, there's lots of channels, there's lots of people out there that teach
was
that.
Another one of those movies
that teach you that you have that ability to create it all. And the problem I see is that people got stuck there.
Right.
And so what happens is people take classes on how to manifest, right? And they give you affirmations and tell you what to do and what mala to do and how to hold your tongue and how to meditate and how to visualize and make a vision board. All of that is good stuff. I'm not saying it's bad.
It's great at the level that it works.
Right. But at some point, you do all that and you still aren't a millionaire, right? You still go, I still don't have that boat I wanted or that vacation home or crap. Why didn't it work? Why is it working for all of them and it's not working for me? And I think it's because that's a very simplistic view of how things work. And you have to keep going and growing up the spiral of the levels of consciousness to have that bigger picture like you were talking about.
So now it's not working quite as well as it was at first. And you begin to wonder, well, maybe, just maybe, I need to come back this way a little to I am God and I'm nothing without God. Right? Because the catch in all the primary, and let's see, what do we got? I'm going to run some colors because that's how I remember these. They have no meaning. I say we have tan, red, blue, orange, and green. So the first 5 levels of consciousness are really still all ego-based consciousness. Your ego is the strong point. You're learning about your spirit, your soul, whatever, right? But you're still coming from your ego. And your ego will always believe, it will always want credit for the good and disown the bad. Okay? So it's where you come back to that, I am God and I'm nothing without God. You're beginning to recognize there's more even to me than I've ever noticed before. There's more. And your ego will keep you trapped in these levels if you're not very diligent. And by diligent, I mean just being aware of what it's up to and how you're functioning and what is the reasoning behind your actions. And this is always a very good question. Action or reaction, what is my reason behind it? What is it that I'm doing with this behavior?
And the levels he's talking about actually come from a book called Spiral Dynamics. And Spiral Dynamics, just to be real quick, was originally written, the concept was written by a social psychologist. And Don Beck was a university professor of business at North Texas. And he actually took it into business. Ken Wilber, if you've heard of him, has taken it more into philosophy. And he goes into lots of different aspects and pieces and how they bleed over and just a lot more left brain stuff than what we're doing tonight.
It was originally brought into being by a social psychologist, Claire Graves. This is a man who was a professor at Harvard.
Right.
So
if you want to know more about what he's mentioning with the colors and all, he just assigns colors to them.
They're relatively meaningless.
No meaning, it's just an assignment.
Right.
But along that path, as you go up the levels, as you continue to evolve, as you continue to look at it, what's going to happen is your beliefs will be challenged. So If you right now, if you think, I want you to think in your own mind, take just a minute of the things you think are truth. Karma, reincarnation, thoughts are things. You create your life. Affirmations work. Angels, guides, departed loved ones.
Aliens.
Aliens.
And I don't mean from here, I mean from there.
All those things are in the game. All those things are in the game. So again, I'm going to reference this as a game. Think of it as a video game. And you're the avatar in the video game. None of it's real, it's a game, but it appears real. So it's important to learn about those things. They're part of the game, how you maneuver through the different levels of the video game. It's good to know those things. And as you evolve and as you keep going, it expands. So now you embrace the green movement. You embrace eating healthier and caring about the planet and
You
using
realize that
solar.
your cat or dog has a certain level of consciousness as well, not
Right.
just you.
You connect with animals.
You're broadening that field in which which is included in me.
So in the game, it's all real.
Mm-hmm.
As you move through the levels of consciousness and the levels of the game, and you move up in the levels of the game, and you get to the end relatively, I say, you realize, one, it's a game. Two, you're just an avatar. And three, every other avatar is you. You're actually all the avatars in the game. You are the guy that is loving and wonderful and the guy that is a murderer. Your essence is all of the avatars. You are the person who's friendly at the checkout and the SOB that cuts you off in traffic. They're all you. You, source, energy, what is little pieces trickled down and in every avatar, but it is all one being called Source. I was going to say puppet master, but that sounds bad. It sounds good. But you are all of the avatars because you are Source.
All of us have inside of us, as an individual being, that we really are, but all of us have inside of us different levels of attainment in our own life. Right? This is why as we go through further in this series, it becomes the Self-Mastery series. Right? But we may have, I may understand psychology at a doctoral level, but do not ask me to do anything that has to do with engineering. It's just not going to fly for me. My brain doesn't work. Or I hadn't been trained to work that way, actually. All right? As a soul, when I look at you, or you are you, what I see is I see another aspect of God moving towards awakening and a return to oneness. That's all I see. That's how, when Tricia says, I am every avatar out here, I am. Because once we get here, you realize there's only one. All of this multiplicity down here, all of materiality is sourced here. This energy, the undifferentiated field, is one. No you, no me, no right, no wrong, just one. Then it, as she said, filters down. Think little fiber optic filaments coming out of a giant light, and this body is one filament, this body, are all separate filaments. But the light is still one.
And when we look at people, we go, how could they do that? That was bad, evil, whatever, we judge it. And obviously, I don't want to be robbed. I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to be maimed. So I can label it as a negative experience, right? What we'll say, and you'll hear us say, is they're just unaware. They don't realize they're connected to the whole. They don't realize they're a part. And by hurting you, I hurt myself. They're just unaware. They don't know. So what we've been talking about all this time is what's called duality. And in duality, there is a you and there's a me. There's an us, there's a them.
There's a higher and a low.
In duality, there is two. Duality means two. If there is a subject-object, right? Subject-object, that's two things. That's duality. Good, bad, right, wrong, left, right, up, down. That's duality. Now, the entire game is built on duality. So everything in the game is duality. It's only when you're able to move outside the game and see it for what it is that you understand the oneness of all that is. And so in our book, Awaken to Oneness, there's a picture that I drew, and I want to draw it real quick and just kind of tell you what it is so it makes sense.
Tricia, just to give you a time check, we are now at 35 minutes.
Good, we're done. We're almost done. We're almost done. We're going to open for questions in a minute. So imagine that, I'll do it this way. So imagine that these are the, levels that we're talking about. It also could be just all the things that we know inside of duality, right? Except it's still inside of oneness. It's still inside the consciousness of what we want to call source or oneness. And that's how it looks to us in duality. It looks linear, it looks a little confusing, but that's it. But when you're up here, this is what it looks like. You look down at it, and the levels are all inside the game. They're all the same. They're all inside. So we're here, we're looking up levels, or we're looking at different levels or dimensions of reality, and this is the first dimension, the third dimension, the 12th dimension, the 100th dimension, this is where the aliens are and all that. But if you are actually source and you're looking at it from the top and you're looking down, you see that it's all still encompassed in source, that it actually never left. You actually never left home. You are actually still source. You are actually still in oneness. Imagine it like you fell asleep. It's a dream. When you fall asleep and you have a dream, if it's a beautiful dream, you don't want to wake up. Oh my word, I don't want to wake up. I want to stay there on the beach or in the mountains with my family or friends or loved ones. It's, my horse, whatever, my unicorn. I want to stay in the dream. It's only when you have a nightmare
that you want to wake up.
It's awful and miserable and you're being chased or hurt or harmed or killed that you want to wake up. So this game that we have has been created with the illusion of good and bad, awful, terrible people doing terrible things, so that it forces you to go, there has to be something beyond. There has to be something beyond what I can see. There has to be something beyond what my little egoic, separate mind believes. And that is your soul. That's behind it. That's who you really are. You are a piece of source having an experience or a nightmare, depending on what it's like for you.
Or both at the same time.
Right? Yet you are still source. You never really left home. You just fell asleep. And so part of the talks that we're going to be giving are, how do you reclaim that? How do you wake back up? How do you remember who you really are? How do you move beyond all of this and see the world as a whole? Not even the world, see the game.
Just see the whole.
Essence. You see the whole rather than the parts. Most days we see the parts, right? Mm-hmm. We see the
fragments
most days. People we don't like at work, right? Family members we don't get along with. We see the fragments rather than the whole. And how do you get to that so you can see the whole and you can live from that space? Because let me tell you, when you do, life is different. Life is different.
It flows much simpler.
It works better.
Still may be at a breakneck speed, but it's a flow. It's not a all the way along. It's just a flow.
If you played a video game and you knew somebody who was farther in the levels in the video game, wouldn't you want to go talk to them to go, like, how can I get there faster?
Game cheats.
How can I cheat? Where can I find things under what rock so I can get the doors open and the permanent treasures? And you want to find somebody who's farther down the path of your video game so that you can quicker go through the levels quicker and not get stuck, and not have to repeat them over and over again. Right? All right. Enough of us. Any questions? Any thoughts?
What?
Anything
Go
different? Yeah.
So, can I go first?
Yes.
Sure, you're talking.
Go for it.
Yeah. So, again, this goes back to the previous topic of the pendulum, right? As you explained,
Okay.
like you go from here to here, and then you have to be the center. Is it possible, like, for you to just believe in, like, hey, God is everything, to believing in, like, you are everything as well as there is a God, and not go to this extreme?
I think it's possible.
All
people,
things are possible.
Yeah, most people don't do that. I think it is possible. I think that much like a pendulum, if you think of a real pendulum that's swinging, right? If it doesn't go way over here and way over here, when it finds the middle, it's not centered. It's not right. It's not centered. So I don't think it's a necessity to go to the extreme, but I do think that the challenge I would see personally is that if you don't at some point embrace that you are God, and you just try to go to, well, God is great and I'm just part of him. You know, if you never go to the point where you think you actually are God, you may miss some of the levels. I don't know.
Yeah, because that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, do I really have to experience the extreme when the ultimate goal is to find a center, right? And that's where I feel I'm at right now. So why do I change my beliefs further, right? Because that's where I'm supposed to be right now.
And you might be
Yes.
able to find that space.
What I would say, because you'll learn, I believe all things are possible.
Right.
Okay? But again, I'll use the example of the human body. Right? We're born as an infant. We can't at some moment decide I'm no longer an infant, I'm 25 years old. It just doesn't work that way. The infant may even have the concept that at some time I'll be as big as my parents, but it takes the time for it to get there. What I would say to you at this point is you're in that spot at the level you're on. Right? What Tricia hasn't mentioned on this is that we're going to go through that pendulum swing on each level. All right? So you may be at that center point, and I'm not going to pinpoint any level. Okay, but you may be at that point right now on the level you are on, and you will find that means you're about to level up, and then at the next level, you're back to this again. Okay, but the more times we go here and then level up, the easier it becomes because now we're accustomed to the process. Doesn't mean that the Easter egg is hidden in the same spot anymore, though. We still have to go through the process of finding our way in the new level. But because you're already moving that direction, because you've already had the concept that I am God and I'm nothing without God, and whatever words you want to put onto that, it simply means that I have this information. Now I have to apply this information to the next level, to the next level, to the next level. All right, okay, makes sense.
I guess. Go ahead.
Are we recording right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll wait till after.
Okay.
I guess, like, we all want to kind of level up, and then I feel like one way to learn is learn from the GOATs, greatest of all times, right? And learn the cheat code, how to accelerate the process, rather than being, in amnesia.
Right.
And so, what are some cheat codes or ways to accelerate the awakening?
For me, the very first cheat code is to recognize I am not my body. And you may already be at this point, but to say I am not my body, we can all say that very easily, and we recognize there's something more than this body. But we don't necessarily know what that is yet. Okay, so you begin with neti, not this, not that, not this, not that. And you begin to really looking and answering the question for yourself, who am I? Right? And you talked about, look for the ones who are ahead of you in the game. This is a statement that every master out there that's ever walked this planet has said clearly. The real search is, who am I? And you have to start by wiping away what you are not. I am not my behavior. I am not my thoughts. I am not my fears. I am not. And what you find is you're left with what you are. Now, I'm not going to tell you what that is. That's for you to find for you.
And then another one I would tell you that is very helpful is to develop a strong observer self.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the time in life, things happen and we react. Again, person cuts you off in traffic and you want to flip them off. Somebody at work says something you don't like, or your boss, says you didn't do a good job and you want to go, be mad. And all that's fine. I'm not saying not to have your emotions, because emotions are an important part of the whole thing and working through them. And there's a point at which you step back. Imagine there's a low wall, and you step back over the low wall and you just watch the game play out. Mm-hmm. You become almost an observer of the game. And you take that moment to not be in the game, but to be observing what's taking place. And when you develop a really strong observer self, things start opening up for you. So when you're battling in the game, you're in the game battling, and that's all you see. But when you back up and you look at the big picture of who's battling who and what's happening and all that, you start to laugh. And you go, well, that's interesting. And then you watch the roles change and different things. But the observer self. So for me, being able to have a strong observer self, and then I can choose more consciously when I want to jump into the game and play, and when it's not my turn, when I don't want to jump in. Too often, what's the phrase that you said about to know who's the master knows the game better than
the spiritual warrior plays the game of life better than those who believe that's all there is. And you look around you in society and you see people who believe where this is all there is. Okay? And they may, I'm going to pick on Mark Cuban for no reason other than that's who popped into my head. Mark Cuban has won the game of financial success, hasn't he? The man's a multi-billionaire. Right? But if you went and looked at the rest of his life, he may not be as masterful at other levels as he was at that. And that's about being able to look and be an observer and say, where am I on this? Where am I on this? Where am I on this?
And that's something we didn't talk about. There are levels on, some people are really good at finances, but really crappy at relationships. Some people are really good at relationships, but really bad with finances, or they don't eat well, or they're very unhealthy. I mean, there's all these different aspects too that are playing. It's somewhat complicated, but there's all these different aspects. So as you step back over that low wall and become an observer of what's happening, and you watch, another piece of that then would be to, how can I improve this area of my life, finances, relationships, whatever, so that I can level up in that piece.
Is there like a Bible of metaphysics? I mean, I've run into books like Kabbalion and Emerald Tablets. It's very weird, esoteric stuff.
Right, yeah.
I don't know which one is closer to the truth than what you guys...
I'll give you a very simple book. It's called Love is Letting Go of Fear. And it was written by a very dear friend of mine, Dr. Jerry Jampolsky. We have it for sale out here. I mean, this book is literally about this thick, and half of it is cartoons, and the other has very few words on the page. But it is the most simple, direct way I've got of explaining what we're talking about. And
most of those esoteric books are that way for a reason. They really aren't trying to give you the answers. I don't know of a book that tells you what we're talking about.
Right. Even our own book doesn't get all the way there.
Doesn't go into this level of consciousness.
Yeah.
Has something like the picture that I was drawing, explains what that is a little bit more, tells you more about us and some of the things that happen when you're first waking up. But then you have to look, like I said, I think you have to look at each aspect of your life and what's working and what's not. And then is that the part I need to level up on, right?
In the process of becoming fully awake, we begin with fully asleep. And I'm going to ask you to think about when you're asleep in your own bed at night. You're not aware of your body. You're not aware of anything. You may be aware of your dreams, but you may not. You are fully asleep. That's about 85% of the planet walking around us, folks, and that's maybe a low percentage, right? Then, at some point along the way, you begin to discover there's times in your dream that you feel like you have some level of control. And you begin to get a hint that there's such a thing as lucid dreaming. So you go out and you go, ooh, well, that was interesting. And you learn a little bit more about lucid dreaming. Or you may, in some cases, mine being the one, I just woke up inside a dream and realized that monster that's chasing me, I don't have to let it chase me. I can simply go, stop. And it stops. Then, as I'm lucid dreaming further, I discover, wait, that monster isn't a monster, it's a messenger. And I ask it for what I'm to learn. The same is true with consciousness. In the beginning, you're not even aware any of this exists. Then you begin to be aware of smatterings of it. You read the Emerald Tablet. You read all of Cryon's works. You read, Conversations with God. You read whatever out there. There's literally thousands upon thousands of books, right? Read them all. That's a good thing. I won't stop you from that. But then you begin to discover, oh, I have some tools. And this goes back to this pendulum swing. I have tools. I'm over here. I think I'm all of them. Oh, wait a minute. Crap. I'm just lucid dreaming because the alarm went off. Right? And now, all of a sudden, all that just filters away. Well, in consciousness, it's the same thing. As you begin to awaken, you're still playing in the dream. This is my own soapbox, but the big word of the moment is woke. Right? And everyone seems to confuse woke with awakened. They are two very different things. Woke, you are still inside the dream. You are dreaming wokeness in the dream. When you wake up, you realize you're still in dream. So I know that's a roundabout way of answering it, but did it get close?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Anything else? Any questions?
Yeah. It's actually got lost when, or maybe it's beyond my understanding at this level, when you said we are all one, right?
Right.
So it's a game, then you are me, you are also me, he's
Right.
also me.
Yeah.
Then where does the concept of reincarnation comes in right now? Because now I'm experiencing everything right now, whatever the lessons that I have planned or whatever lessons I planned in this body, then
Keep
I'm
coming
already-
back. That'll be another topic.
Yeah.
That's an entire another
Okay.
topic. Yeah. So what we're going to be talking about through this series are things like that, of karma, reincarnation, contracts, of the things that we often associate with metaphysics and offer you a different way to look at it, a different way to view it than what you were taught.
I'm going to jump on that one real quick, though, rather than deferring it.
I'm trying to get him to come back.
No. There. Source reincarnates. You do not.
Interesting.
So
Source, oneness, reincarnates. Remember all those little fiber optic dots coming down? That's source reincarnating. Your ego, the part of you that defines you as you in this game, does not reincarnate. Okay. Source
that's a whole other
reincarnates.
topic.
Please understand,
Yeah.
Source holds every memory that everything here had. So it will have a memory of you. It will have a memory of you. It'll have a memory of me. Right? So it takes all that, and each time Source reincarnates.
So one of the things that we didn't mention, which we probably should have at the beginning, spoiler alert, right, is that both Rusty and I have been to Samadhi. We have
Multiple
both
times.
been and work from most days from a space of oneness. Samadhi is a connection with all that is. And when you go there, you are no longer.
You don't exist.
So
you aren't.
we've had different, we have other videos you can watch. We're happy to explain. It's in the book as well. But we both have had the experience of merging with oneness. And when you merge with oneness, when you go outside, when you go back up here, when you go to the middle, when you're no longer a player in the game, and you go back to literally source and oneness, there is no you and me. There is no table, chair, floor. There is no us and them. There is none of that. Your body doesn't exist. When you merge with source, you literally are no more. It's as though the drop of water went in the ocean and exploded